Some of his followers are being sought by the FBI is not stopping the leader of the Oath Keepers. CNN: The FBI is investigating some of his followers. Others are already in custody and facing decades in prison if convicted of federal charges connected to the January 6th insurrections at the U.S. Capitol. But the nation leader of the extremist Oath Keepers group is carrying on as before. He might even be emboldened. You gotta declare this regime to be illegitimate, Stuart Lodis said on InfoWars on January 30, 24 days after the riot amid the violence that left 5 deaths and delayed the certification of President Joe Biden's election win. You got to declare everything that comes out of King Biden's mouth as illegitimate, null and void from the inception, because he's not a legitimate president. Lodez is still peddling the falsehood that the election was illegitimate. He said Biden's administration and supporters in Congress should be seen as an occupying enemy force and issues warnings about what he claims are 365 million armed patriots ready to rise up. There's going to be resistance. The only question is what will be the spark? Rhodes said in the January 30 interview on InfoWars, a media organization that is one of the leading purveyors of conspiracy theories in the US. They keep pushing, he said of who he calls leftists. That is why it's important. Let them be the ones who drew first blood. Then you defend. Rhodes spoke to CNN in the days after the violent invasion of the Capitol, but did not return multiple calls and emails to comment on the future of the Oath Keepers for this story. But his rhetoric after the insurrection in interviews and posting reviews by CNN mirrors what he urged his followers beforehand when he encouraged them to attend the January 6th rally. Our patriots who can get to DC need to be in DC. Now is the time to stand. It's not too late to go. Jump on a plane. Jump in your car. Just to get there. Rhodes said on his group's website on January 4th. Stand now or knee forever. Oath Keepers inside the Capitol. Rhodes' call was apparently heard and heeded by a number of people who entered the Capitol on that bloody day, including former members of the military who the Oath Keepers group actively recruits for membership. Jessica Watkins, confirmed by Rhodes as being an Oath Keeper, has emerged as one of the central figures in the government case against the insurrectionists. She was photographed with Rhodes, a figure made distinctive by a black eye patch, in November during a Stop the Steal and the Million Mega March event in Washington, D.C. Watkins, who served in the army, is charged along with two other military veterans and alleged oath keepers Donovan Crowe and Thomas Caldwell, with conspiracy and other charges related to the attack. We are in the Magellan. We are in the main dome right now. We are rocking it. Watkinson said on a well walkie-talkie app, according to federal prosecutors. They said she was coordinating with others. We are in the fucking capital, Crow. Watkinson Rear is said to have yelled to Crow as Crow shot selfie video, according to the complaint against them. Watkinson and Crow are both being held in jail, and neither had the assigned a lawyer at the time this story was published. Caldwell is accused of coordinating with Watkins and Crow before, during, and after the assault. His lawyer said Caldwell denies involvement with the oath keepers. He also said Caldwell has worked for the FBI. An FBI spokesperson said it was policy not to comment on personnel matters, and CNN is unable to confirm Caldwell's work for the FBI. But a source with inside knowledge of how the Oath Keepers operate told CNN there are members who are in federal law enforcement but kept off the official member database for plausible deniability. The FBI is trying to identify a group of between 8 and 10 people wearing military tactical gear emblazoned with the Oath Keepers paraphernalia on the Capitol step. One photo shows a few Oath Keepers inside the Capitol Rotunda. Rhodes, who was not facing charges in connection to January 6th, says he did not enter the Capitol building, but he was seen after the assault with the man in Oath Keepers gear now being sought by the FBI. The FBI has a field for information on the group in the FBI photos. Rhodes told CNN shortly after the insurrection that he was not anti-government, but that he didn't trust the FBI right now. Inflammatory rhetoric and offers of help. Rhodes, now 55, is an Army veteran and disabled lawyer who incorporated the Oath Keepers in 2009. After the group rose to prominence during the first election campaign of Barack Obama. Our role is not to be obedience to whoever happened to be the leader. Our role is to defend the Constitution and the Republic, Rhodes told CNN in 2009. Rhodes and other militia groups began denouncing the government as tyrannical, according to Alex Friedfeld, an investigative researcher with the Anti-Defamation League. Rhodes boasts about trying to recruit active and retired military and law enforcement personnel. The oath in the group's name refers to the pledge to defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic, with the subtext that they were not necessarily beholden to obey orders from the government they believe is illegitimate. He found ways to insert his group into national flashpoint, positioning members as protesters of society while continuing to use charged rhetoric. Members of the Oath Keepers were in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014 during the months-long protest in the wake of the police killing of Michael Brown. They said they were there to protect the businesses. Their presence was applauded by some owners and shunned by others. Some oath keepers were involved in armed participation in dispute at the Bundy Ranch in Nevada, according to the ADL. Rhodes also told people to flock to Washington, D.C. after a standoff at the Bundy Ranch. During the Obama years, the Oath Keepers were openly and anti-government in their views, according to the ADL and the other groups tracking extremism. But the rise of political outsider Donald Trump brought the change. Trump's calls to drain the swamp and his policy views were now more parallel to Rhodes' rhetoric than the campaigns of previous presidential nominees. In the 2016 election, Rhodes issued a call to action dubbed Operation Sabot, in which he told members and supporters to look for voter fraud or intimidation at polling locations. Rhodes also frequently wrote and referred to Hillary Clinton, who he vehemently opposed as Hitler. Even then, he used the language of making sure the election was not stolen from the citizens. When Trump came to power, Rhodes moved away from criticizing the political leadership and targeted issues on which he and then presidents shared similar feelings: anger about illegal immigration, China, and those on the left, and the protection for Second Amendment rights. He often spoke of deploying Oath Keepers to the U.S.-Mexico border. He called on Oath Keepers to stand lawfully armed in front of schools after the Parkland school massacre of February 2018. Rhodes said his group provided security for VIPs who were attending Trump rallies, and he went further, saying he would help the average American prepare if they were to be called out by the President of the United States to serve as militia of the United States to secure the schools, protect our borders, or whatever else he asked them to do to execute our laws, lethal invasions, and suppress insurrections, which he claimed firstly was being carried out by the left. We want to see a militia basically re-established in this country and trained up, he added. Preparing for still. As Trump ramped up his bid for re-election, Rhodes and other extremist groups started to fan the flames of what could come if he lost. making frequent mention of the Civil War as early as July 2019. Rhodes told Alex Jones on InfoWars that if Trump was not re-elected, we won't accept the result and will have no choice but to fight. He boasted his group had veterans who were well trained. If this kicks off into a civil war, a bloody one, they will instantly go to work and take it to the left, he said. After Biden won the election, Rhodes wrote the open letter to Donald Trump on December 23rd, urging him, among many things, to invoke the Insurrections Act, noting there are millions of American patriots standing ready. The act allows, under certain limited circumstances involved in the defense of constitutional rights, the president to deploy troops unilaterally. unilaterally. Do not forsake them. Do not leave them to have to do it all themselves. Keep your promise. Drain the swamp. Do it now. Rhodes wrote. We will help you at every step of the way. After the siege, the way words turned to action did not altogether surprise those who have been monitoring groups like the Oath Keepers for years. In late 2020, we saw a sharp uptick in Stuart Rhodes' violent rhetoric. Friedfeld of the ADL told CNN. He started to frame the election as a line in the sand, where if the Democrat won, it would be the imposition of tyranny. Rhodes told CNN after the violence that he and his members were in Washington, D.C. as part of their broad mission of protection. Watkins' boyfriend told CNN last month she traveled to the Capitol to help protect some Trump VIP members, and a man in Oath Keeper garb was seen apparently guarding Trump confidant Roger Stone on the morning of January 6th. Rhodes has lost some followers after January 6th. The North Carolina chapter quit the Rhodes group, though it said it still supported the mission and would be rebranding. In the letter to their local sheriff that they agreed to share with CNN. We could see the mayhem and want no part of it, wrote Doug Smith, who said he was in Washington, D.C. that day, but did not enter the Capitol. The man of North Carolina believed that the national leadership of Oath Keepers could have stopped this and did nothing. The man and myself included can no longer be affiliated with the Oath Keepers after this sad event in our nation's history. But there are many other chapters and members of the group. Accused leaders like Watkins are being held in jail or hunted down for their alleged involvement in the January 6th insurrection. And Rhodes is still preaching and issuing orders to anyone willing to listen.